It's just a public service announcement. Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Ho. H to the O.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Pro Sports Takes. As you can see in the title, we got a special guest on this episode. How about you introduce us, man? Let them know what you're all about.
So my name is Anish. I'm from the Cold Hard Truth podcast, also known as the Cold Hard Truth on YouTube. And we basically go over all things football, all things NFL, go over draft content or college content, college players. And we also go over all things NFL, whether it be breaking news, predictions, takes. And, we've been doing it for now 1.5 years. Crazy to say. But Rob reached out to us. Brandon also reached out to us. So appreciate you guys for reaching out and excited to get this started with you guys. That's pretty much all I need to say. I'm sure they'll leave our links down below. But if you guys want to check us out, we're on all podcast platforms. We're on YouTube as well. We've got great content out there. So if you guys want more football content, feel free to check us out.
Absolutely. We'll definitely throw those links in the description. And we actually went on your show as well. So check us out there. But if you are an NFL fan, football fan, and you like facts, go check out Cold Hard Truth podcast. That's all they do is spit facts. So you definitely got to give it a listen. And today we're going to be spitting facts about the best draft classes from the 2021 NFL class. A lot of teams came out with a lot of value, but what teams came out with the most? That's where we're going to get in today. And Anish, you're our special guest. How about you kick us off, man?
All right, so I'm going to try and speed through these, but at 5, I got the New England Patriots. Now, for the Patriots, I think this draft was definitely a really different one than how they normally do things. Obviously, Tom Brady leaving, so the whole question was, are they going to get a quarterback? With Cam Newton, the questions were huge, and they did, and they picked Mac Jones at 15. I really like that pick. I'm really excited to see it. I think he's just, a poor man's Tom Brady in a way. Like, he plays so similar, that 7x9 yard box, in the pocket. That's where he plays best. He's so good at placement throws. I love that pick. But it's not even that made them a top 5 draft class, in my opinion. It's the value that they got in day 2. Ronnie Perkins, a defensive end from Oklahoma. I had him as a second-round talent. Early in the second round, I thought he was going to go. They got him in the 3rd round towards the end. That was very, very impressive to me. I think it was one of the final picks in the 3rd round. So that was hats off to them. And also Christian Barmore, a guy who I also had in my top 20. I thought he was going to go. He was by far the best interior defensive lineman in the draft, in my opinion. Obviously got that Alabama pedigree. And Bill Belichick says, hey, let me scoop him in the 2nd round. I believe they traded up for him, if I'm not mistaken, but I think that was worth it. Loved also the McGrone pick, linebacker out of Michigan. I love that pick as well. I think they just, got the guys that they needed. Also the Missouri safety. Got positions of need, but also getting best players available. And I think this draft class only adds to this crazy offseason that the Patriots have had. If you're cool with me, moving on to number 4, I got the New York Jets, another AFC East team. And I think the Jets, basically what they were saying is, obviously the Zach Wilson pick was kind of expected. Everyone kind of anticipated him going at number 2, but, the Jets are trying to basically remake the struggles that they've had with, Sam Darnold and try and actually build around their quarterback. And I really like the Elijah Vera Tucker trade up that they did. Yeah, they gave up their 3rds, but they still have a bunch of picks next year, so they're not really missing out on anything. They still had 3 5ths. So I think for Elijah Vera Tucker to put him alongside that left side with Mekhi Becton, that's a great left side for Zach Wilson to build on. And that pick at 34, Elijah Moore, again, a first-round receiver that I had him later in the 1st round, but to get him at pick 34 was, I think, a really, really solid pickup. I think he's going to play great, in that Jamison Crowder role. That can also allow Jamison Crowder to play maybe on the opposite side slot or maybe on the outside. Gives him a lot of versatility there. And again, Michael Carter is another pick that really stood out to me because you didn't put too much into the running back position. You didn't spend a 1st, you didn't spend a 2nd, you didn't even spend a 3rd. You got a 4th round pick on a guy who is the Sony Michel, Nick Chubb hybrid, how he played at UNC with Javonte Williams. So I thought it was a great pickup to, play alongside Tevin Coleman. And I think that's 4th on my list. At 3, I'm going to go with the Chicago Bears. And I talked with Rob off the air a little bit on the Justin Fields pick, but man, this is finally something that Chicago had. Like, Chicago's been starving for a quarterback, and to get a guy like him, in the 1st round, trade up for him, the 11th pick, like, this is something Chicago's been starving for. Like, this is narrative-wise, this is all the tools, all the great things in the making. And I love Justin Fields. He's my favorite Ohio State quarterback that I've ever watched, and I think he's going to be absolutely incredible for them. And another pick, they didn't have many picks after round 2, but that round 2 pick of Tevin Jenkins was honestly could be my steal of the draft because I had him. I was very high on him. I think he's my 4th tackle in this class. And get him at pick 39 is very strong. He holds blocks. He's a power blocker, and he's definitely as a 2nd level blocker, probably one of the best in this class, if not right behind Sewell in that regard. Very talented, and he's very bulky and husky. So I like that pick for Chicago. Also, the Khalil Herbert pick wasn't that bad. I think, maybe to back up David Montgomery. Also, Daz Newsome out of North Carolina, I really liked. I think the Bears really killed it with the picks that they had, and also giving up 1 first, I think, to move up for Justin Fields. If he pans out, teams are going to be like, yeah, whatever. It was 1 first for your franchise guy. Now, at number 2, for those of you who don't know, I am a diehard Browns fan, and I wanted to keep my bias out as much as possible, but I really think the Browns killed it in this draft class. At pick 26, you get a guy in Greg Newsome who only allowed 12 catches his entire, I think it was junior year. He was a stud at Northwestern. Played outside. It was amazing. 6-foot frame, but he plays so much bigger than that and stronger than his frame gives. And to get JOK at pick 52, who was a lot of guys' 15th to 20th ranked prospect, even though he had the heart thing, I don't think that's going to be anything major. But JOK is an absolute stud. I did a video on him and Micah Parsons if you guys want to check that out. But, what I was able to see from him, he is a great coverage guy, especially in zone coverage. He can follow running backs. He can cover tight ends. And he's a great in pursuit, especially in the backfield. So I love the pick. Also, Anthony Schwartz was, I thought, a great fast wide receiver that can really take the top off of defenses. He ran a 4.25. And also I think it was Tommy Togai, or Togai, however you say it, the defensive tackle out of Ohio State I really liked. And then Demetric Felton, that's the one I want to round it out with, the running back wide receiver, just a hybrid guy. If Kareem Hunt leaves, I think you'd be a great backup for Nick Chubb. Also getting a 4th-round pick from the Detroit Lions, trading back during that. I thought Andrew Berry did a stellar job, and that's why he's my favorite GM that we've ever had, and just, one of the best young GMs in football. And then to round it out for my list, I got the Lions at number 1. And for the Detroit Lions, the reason why I have them at number 1 is because I think they killed it in just every facet. One, also, it's a very underrated part of why I put them at number 1, but the reaction to when they drafted Sewell by Campbell and their GM, I'm forgetting his name, but just the way they reacted with each other, just how happy they were of the pick and how excited, it just showed a culture change. And that's why I was like, okay, you know what? Detroit really put effort into this draft. You wouldn't see Matt Patricia jumping up and down for picking anybody. I don't even care if it was a franchise quarterback. He just wasn't that invested in the team, showed up late to meetings. So it finally said, hey, we're going for a culture change. And taking Sewell over a flashy guy like Devontae Smith shows that, okay, we really did our research for, who we want to pick. And also another one, Amon-Ra St. Brown, the wide receiver from USC at round 4. Oh, I love the pick. I think he's a mini Marvin Jones. He's got insane potential. Also 2 defensive tackles to kind of fill the voids that you lost. Danny Shelton, all those years ago. But I think the Lions definitely killed it in the sense that, hey, we got each position, offensive tackles, defensive tackles, a corner, wide receiver, and then linebacker and running back to fill the void of Kerryon Johnson. Lions killed it in every facet. They didn't reach anywhere. They didn't, make any unnecessary trades. And I think the Sewell pick is just, probably one of the best value picks in the first round because of how great he is. So I think I ramble a little bit too much, but those are probably my top 5. I loved all of these draft classes. And I think all 5 of these teams definitely got better through the draft.
So that's the cold, hard truth right there. B, what's your thoughts without giving away anything that we got going on?
I like the list a lot. Like some of the things that you did in detail, especially with Tevin Jenkins and the Bears. I like how you went into how this is what the Bears fans needed and what they really wanted. And they finally gave them the guy that's going to take this franchise to heights that it hasn't seen in God knows how long. So it's a very solid list, and I'm excited to get into ours.
Yeah, very solid list. Got the Lions at number 1, which I think is a little surprising, but thought your explanation covering all the different positions and players that they added to their team is going to definitely help their rebuilding period that they got with their new coaching staff and front office. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. But going into the PSO top 5 list, going to give an honorable mention to the Jets. I think you had them in your top 5 because they did knock it out of what they should have done. They needed to obviously get a quarterback. They got Zach Wilson, who they were rumored to take the entire time. And they gave him what they didn't give Sam Darnold. They gave him some receivers and Elijah Moore. They gave him an offensive lineman and Elijah Vera Tucker. And they're making sure that they're going to put him in a better position than they put Sam Darnold. And so when you come out of your class with potentially 4 starting caliber players with those 3, along with Michael Carter, the running back that you covered, Anish, you're going to have a solid draft class. So
100%.
Jets do get an honorable mention, but they don't make the top 5 because B, start our top 5 off, man. Let them know what we got.
At number 5, we're going with Vic Fangio's Broncos. And last time we saw the Broncos relevant and the best they've ever been, Super Bowl caliber team, Super Bowl winning team, they had 2 elite cornerbacks in Aqib Talib and Chris Harris Jr. So they went with their first pick with Patrick Surtain. And in today's NFL, you have to have elite cornerbacks. You need somebody to shut down the field when it really matters. And this guy's going to be as solid as it gets on the outside. He's a true technician, and bloodlines truly matter in the NFL, and you've seen that in this draft. We got Javonte Williams. And I love running backs going early in the second round because this guy has first-round talent, and he's a true running back that's slippery and strong, and that's a scary combo. And when you
They
turn
gave him that AK-40. They gave him that AK-41 comparison with Alvin Kamara.
Sir.
Yeah, some say he's the best running back in this class.
But to say he definitely has the talent to be the best running back in this class. And if you turn on the NC or the North Carolina film, it looks effortless for him out there on the field. So I just see him transitioning to the NFL very well. And number 3, they went with Quint Menares. And if you look back at players like Ali Marpet, who was the starting guard on the Super Bowl winning Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you see these small school guys go to the Senior Bowl, and when you see them hold their own, they become solid players in the NFL. So I like them taking the flyer on him in the 3rd round. They went Jamar Johnson after that. He's a steal at this spot. He has 3rd-round caliber talent, and he has great ball skills. He truly willed the Indiana defense to what it was last year, and that really got that team going. And when you think about the Broncos' main strength on defense, it's at the linebacker position. They got A.J. Johnson and Josie Jewell. Those are 2 hard-nosed, run-stopping linebackers. And they went out and got Baron Browning, who's more of an athletic, all-over-the-field type player. So he brings flavor to that defense, and you need that player that can play inside the box and outside the box based off how the game is spread out today. That's our number 5 team, the Denver Broncos. I'm going to go right into number 4, and we're going to the Chicago Bears. Anish talked about it a little bit. The Bears got what they deserved at quarterback, but it's something that people aren't seeing with this pick. Chicago is a tough place to play. You need somebody that can run the ball when it gets down to it and the environment is really tough. And they finally got that with somebody like Justin Fields. And one of his biggest minuses through the draft process was being able to process defenses and make the right decisions. But they got drafted by Matt Nagy, and Matt Nagy is a smoke and mirrors type offensive coordinator. And what I mean by smoke and mirrors, I mean runs a lot of motions, RPOs. And if you look at one of the most fascinating stats from this draft, Justin Fields had the least amount of RPOs of the first top 5 quarterbacks. So now he'll just get some time to get some easy throws, get things going, and be able to use his legs. He instantly fits the worst quarterback situation in the league. Tevin Jenkins is round 1 talent. He covers a massive need at offensive tackle, so that's a great pick. We talked about his size, his strength. He's really a round 1 talent caliber player. And this is one of the best 6th-round draft picks I've ever seen in my life. They had 3 6th-round picks, and they used it on Khalil Herbert out of Virginia Tech. He's a big play running back. They used it on Daz Newsome, who went to UNC, another big play receiver. And lastly, they used it on Thomas Grant, a cornerback out of Oregon, who I think can make some really good plays.
That's how you get into the top 5. And as you were talking about with the environment for Justin Fields, I think when you were describing it, it's all about how it is known as the Windy City. It's not the easiest place to pass. It's not the easiest place to kick field goals. And getting that mobile quarterback that can make plays on the ground and not need to throw it in the air is really going to be a pro for them going forward. But getting into number 3, and it's Anish's favorite team, it's Cleveland Browns. I thought Cleveland, the city, won the draft because there were just so many mentions of the city, so much love shown toward the city overall. But as an organization, I thought the Browns knocked it out of the park, kind of like you covered, of getting JOK in the 2nd round. They were even considering him at the 26th overall pick, a do-it-all linebacker that can play all over the field. Greg Newsome, as you were saying, only allowed 12 catches in his junior year. Crazy lockdown coverage, and that's their biggest need, and they covered it in that 1st round. Great pickup. And then they need another slot guy next to Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry. Who do they get? Anthony Schwartz, a guy that can be a plug-and-play guy from day one, along with the defensive lineman that you talked about and Tommy Togai. And then I'm also going to show some love to Richard LeCount, star safety at Georgia. Coming in as a 5-star prospect.
I wanted to let you talk about him. Yep, there you go. Georgia.
The guy's a playmaker, and he's a hard hitter. He might have a small frame for NFL safety, but he doesn't play like it at all. And I think sooner or later he's going to be an impactful player on the defensive side of the ball. And until then, he's going to be a great special teams guy that can really cover a lot of ground. And then, B, how about you give us number 2?
Number 2 is the Los Angeles Chargers.
LA.
I want to give the Chargers because they made a great move by getting Brandon Staley, who was the next 30-something-year-old prodigy, to come into the head coach rank and just take over the league for the next 30 years.
Defensive genius, that guy.
Defensive genius. I've had the pleasure of working with Brandon Staley or playing for Brandon Staley for a year, and he's the smartest coach.
Oh, wow.
He's really a bright guy.
That's high praise.
Right into the picks, we got Slater going. He fell all the way to 13. This is massive for Justin Herbert's thin frame. He's a thin-ass guy, so you can't have him just getting hit and clobbered all over the field. You need a true book in that tackle, and Slater can play tackle and he can play guard. So they've had a lot of offensive line struggles. I can't remember when the offensive line has ever been good. So first round with the 13th pick, you get somebody that can play tackle, guard. He might even be able to play some center. So he's a hell of a pick, strongest player in the draft.
There might not be a single group in the NFL that improved more than the Chargers O-line this offseason. getting Slater, adding Corey Linsley, adding Matt Filer, and I think they added O'Day Aboshi, or I might butcher that last name.
I mean, this line is literally it's great. I love it.
Yeah, just to solidify that O-line is going to be huge for Herbert, and glad you touched on that, B.
They did a great job of surrounding their franchise quarterback with some actual protection. That's what you have with young players. But number 2, like I talked about earlier with Surtain and Bloodlines, we got Asante Samuel, and this was a home run pick. He only fell to the second round just because he's a little undersized. But size won't deny first-round film. And guess what? He's 5'10", just like his dad was, and we saw how his career turned out. He'll ball out for this defensive head coach. I love the pick in the second round. And then the third round, it might be a surprise to some people, but Josh Palmer is a hell of a player. His production has not matched his talent, and that's not his fault, though. He clearly has route running, hands, and the body control of an elite receiver. Now, will he get to elite status one day? Probably not. But I think this is a great pick in the third round. I think he has the makings to be able to get open over and over and over again. And he went crazy at the Senior Bowl in one-on-ones and showed the scouts what he could really do. And even if you go back and ask Patrick Surtain if he's a good player, I guarantee you he will tell him, because he had that one long touchdown on him. And I'm sure
go watch the tape against Pat Surtain.
But that's what I got with the number 2 team, the Chargers. Rob, go ahead and take it away with our top squad.
All right, so number 1, ladies and gentlemen, have all been waiting for. It was actually Anish's number 5, and that's in Foxborough, New England Patriots. I cannot be high enough on that number 1 pick of getting Mac Jones, just falling into their lap. Kind of talked about it on the Cold Hard Truth podcast with Aaron Rodgers falling into Green Bay's lap, obviously a decade and a half ago, and just seeing like Mac Jones had all this conversation about going number 3, being that Mac Jones replica for Kyle Shanahan, who obviously got the MVP season out of Matt Ryan. They went with Trey Lance, who has a higher ceiling, and it might work out for them down the road. But for the Patriots, like you said, Mac Jones is kind of a poor man's Tom Brady. There's not really anything Tom Brady does on the football field from an athletic standpoint, from a throwing power, accuracy standpoint, that Mac Jones hasn't been proven that he can do on the field. Does he have the intangibles of Tom Brady? That's what we'll find out. But the fact that he's Nick Saban's most accomplished, most productive quarterback in his history, and the relationship that Saban and Belichick have just makes it very interesting. And the fact that he's going to be Belichick's greatest quarterback successor, and it is Saban's greatest quarterback. So we'll see how that plays out. But I think this could very well be known as the draft that Mac Jones went to the Patriots. But then they added on to it by getting Christian Barmore, the defensive lineman out of Alabama, who, like you said, was the number 1 defensive tackle in the class. And then Ronnie Perkins, an edge rusher that has first-round talent, that has a very high ceiling, can be a real playmaker for them on the defensive end. So they might have fewer projected starters in this class than some of the other teams they went over. But when you get a franchise quarterback and don't have to give up any capital, it's not like the 49ers who had to give up all these other picks. It's not like these other teams that had to lose a ton of games last year to get that guy. The Patriots were able to get him in the middle of the first round, and he can be an instant player if they choose to play him this year, or if they let Cam Newton play and Mac Jones takes over. It almost seems like this could be the second coming, and Mac Jones could really be the next guy to bring them to title contention.
I love the list. I think every pick you guys answered was true and true. I love the analysis on Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones, the intangibles, it's similar pedigree because, he's been in these big games and, they were asked to throw him into the fire. He played behind Jalen Hurts, played behind Tua Tagovailoa, and then they throw him out, 2020 and say, hey, go win us a national championship. And he says, watch this, throw 5 touchdowns, the biggest game of his life. So he's got those type of intangibles. Let's see if they translate. Obviously, he needs to work a little bit on progressing reads past the first primary option, but his placement throws are on point. I love the Mac Jones pick, and also you guys' analysis on every other player that you guys did, hands down, I agreed with. I think the Bears analysis too on Justin Fields, I agreed with. Needs a guy that can, when the game slows down, can he perform at that level? And when it gets windy or when it gets in these colder conditions, he's used to it at Ohio State, at least in the games that he was played. So I think that's a great transition for a guy who's going to be playing in a quarterback hungry city.
Yeah, and that's a great point about Mac Jones, of just the fact that all this talk about what he can't do athletically, his DUIs earlier on in his life, as those are his intangibles. But look what he did in the big moments. Look what he did in the biggest games of the year against the Georgias, against the Floridas, against the SEC championships and the national championships. Those were his best games. He literally had his best games, and everyone's like, oh, look at his supporting cast. Waddle was out most of the year. It was really just Devontae Smith, who obviously was a Heisman and terrific player. But would he have been the Heisman with a different quarterback? I don't know. They're both on the record of saying Mac Jones was better than Tua Tagovailoa. So it clearly means that he has the talent to be a great player. and has shown that he can step up in those big moments. And that's what really fueled the Patriots dynasty all those years. It wasn't like they were blowing teams out. Like almost all their Super Bowl wins were 3-point wins because their quarterback stepped up when it mattered most. And that's what they're going to do from Mac
I
Jones.
love that one phrase, stepped up when it mattered most. That's the one you look for when you evaluate quarterbacks. So couldn't agree more.
Absolutely, man. Well, really appreciate having you on. Go check out Cold Hard Truth. It's going to be in the bio. It's going to be in the description. And you might even see us give our takes on their show because all they do is spit facts. And that's all we do here. So lock it in. That's our take for the day. And you can find all pro sports takes on prosportsoutlook.com, or even better, if you're already subscribed to Pro Sports Outlook's YouTube channel.
And that wraps up this episode of Pro Sports Takes. And remember, we encourage everyone to go ahead and leave comments about the player or even the team you want us to discuss. Tweet us at PSO_sports or simply use the hashtag ProSportsTakes. And we'll continue to monitor what's hot so we can give it a spot on our future show.
So we'll see you next time.
Until next time.